Hello.
We're good. So there I was in a motorhome driving across the country from Southern California all the way to Alabama. My brothers were there, and my wife had asked my dad not to have any alcohol in the RV, which didn't work out that way. And I was drinking and drinking and drinking like crazy. And we got through Texas, and my family had all kinds of things that you shouldn't have when traveling across country in the RV. And all of a sudden, we passed the Border Patrol, and the dogs go crazy. They detect whatever it is we have in the RV, they notice we're all drunk, and like a wonderful genius person, we decide just to drive away. We didn't hear them. We didn't even what's that noise back there? They're not telling us to stop. So we continue going down the highway at 60 miles an hour, thinking that everything is fine. We're out in the middle of Texas. I've never been to Texas. We're out there trying to figure out what's going on, and all of a sudden, four black SUVs light their lights up and get around this RV and pull us over to the side of the road, yank us all out of the RV, and I'm actually not that scared because I'm drunk and I don't really care what's going on, and I don't really care about my life or anything like that. And what you're going to notice is that oftentimes, as alcoholics and recovering addicts or alcoholics, we like to dramatize the things that we went through. And while that was actually a true story, a lot of people like to look at that and compare different stories as if it's a badge of honor, as if it's something like, hey, I remember that. That was good. And what we don't remember is that we have a built in forgetter. Yeah, that sounds pretty crazy, right? We don't remember that we have a built in forgetter. And what that means is that we have a built in forgetter that makes us forget about all the bad things with alcohol. And it makes us forget about what it was actually like to be in the pits of addiction. And we forget about all the bad stuff. And oftentimes you'll go to a recovery meeting, you'll go to rehab. I remember when I went to rehab, half the rehab was hearing horror stories of what people went through. And it was like we were trying to one up each other. Hey, I was in an RV going across the country and I got pulled over. Yeah, well, I was in a propeller plane and I got pulled over. Yeah, well, I was in a jet. Yeah, well, you know what? I was on the moon last time I drank. So, and it's like a big thing where people are trying to compare their stories and they're trying to compare what's going on. When in actuality, the fact of the matter is, we're all here to get sober. We all know what alcohol has done to our life. We know how it's destroyed it, and we know exactly what's going to happen when we start again. Maybe not instantly, maybe not right now, but down the line, you could pretty much count on the fact that alcohol will get you again if you don't choose to take it off the table. I'm Marcus. This is Terry. Welcome to Talk Sober and TalkSober.com. And we are here to talk to you about the crazy stories and what it means to us to have those stories and what they do for us and what they don't do for us. So, Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Bit of a sad week, but it's all right. Things are good. I'm still sober, and I have many of those stories.
All right. So what is it like for you when you hear those types of stories? Because I know for me in rehab, I did a lot of listening and a lot of talking because that's what I do, right? And I did a lot of listening and I heard a lot of stories, and it kind of, even just being sober a couple weeks, it got kind of old. I was like, okay, yeah, I really don't care. I mean, I'm here to get sober, not to hear this. What was that like for you?
Yeah, when I first came sober, or when I first got sober, I very much enjoyed listening to those stories, and I don't know, sometimes because they were just entertaining. As simple as that. I just shake my head and laugh, and I don't know, but I just thought they were kind of funny as to what people would do. But I related to a lot of them, and that's, in the long run, that's kind of why it's not so bad to hear those stories. We call a lot of times you hear them called drunkalogs, and sometimes it's okay to hear those drunkalogs, just to know that we're not alone in this, and that a lot of people have done some crazy things. And some of these things are just terrible that alcoholics have done in the midst of their addiction. And so a lot of these stories are sad, and it's just crazy the things that we'll do just to get the drink. And it's good to be reminded of that. Sometimes I hear people's stories, and it's, you're almost thinking that like they're talking, and that they think, oh yeah, I'm the biggest alcoholic there ever was, and you can't prove me wrong. And they kind of wear that as a badge of honor.
Mhm.
And those I kind of get turned off on a little bit, but it's still, at the same time, it's a good reminder of the bad things that can happen, and just to keep me on that straight path of working towards sobriety. I don't want to forget that past, because when I do, it's there's a chance I could start drinking again. And so I need to keep that stuff in mind. I don't want to dwell on it. Absolutely not. I want to dwell on the future and what I'm going to do to stay sober today. But for me, it's important to remember the things that have happened in my life, and some of those just crazy stories are the things that I've done.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of times, maybe for some people it is something they need to go through, like a grieving process, where it's like, okay, I got to grieve, what I went through and what it's like. And now I'm getting past that. And I remember in the beginning, I would get into some of that as well, where I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll tell the motorhome story, or I'll tell this, or hey, this happened to me. And it's kind of like, kind of like a comparison game. And then we find out that, we don't really need it anymore. We don't really need to cling to the old stories because in all in all reality, that's not us anymore. Right? That was the drunk version of us. And I think sometimes it's good to keep certain things close by. Like I remember certain times, like when I would drink and I'd be in my office and I'd just be crying and just depressed. And I like to remember that because I'm like, okay, um, this happened, and then my brain says, oh, hey, maybe you could go drink or something, and then I remember that as a way to say, well, that's what's going to happen, right? And in a lot of recovery meetings, they'll say, play the whole tape out. Like, how's that going to work out? You go to the bar and yay, woohoo, the game's on and the beer's flowing and all this stuff, and we're high fiving, and that's what we think. We don't think, well, yeah, I'm at the bar and I'm depressed and probably going to get in a fight with someone because I'm an ass, and then I go home probably, shouldn't be driving, shouldn't be doing a lot of stuff, and it's really not what we think it is. And I think the danger in glorifying the old stories is that we're glorifying that life, and now we look at our life as boring. Right? I could look at it and be like, well, I don't get pulled over by five cops in Texas anymore. Right? I drive through and they're like, hey, good job. You're going slightly above the speed limit. We'll just leave it at that. But other than that, you're okay. You're not swerving or anything like that because you're not drinking. And oftentimes, we look at it and our life might seem boring. But to me, I wouldn't trade what I have now for the world because just this week we had, for me, I had these business fires to put out, like all kinds of stuff going on. And it's just a pain in the butt, right? Things that are like, hey, this is my livelihood here, and this is what happens, and certain things happen, and stuff goes wrong. And now, I've been doing this for 21 years, the other business, and I know, I've been doing it 21 years. You know what's going to happen. Like Terry looks at his, and it's like, okay, all else fails, I know how to be a chef, right? I mean, I could go be a chef. There's always people eating. And that's what we tell ourselves. But oftentimes, when the pandemic stuff and all that happened, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to do what you always did, right? And our minds don't like to do that. Mine likes to go to the negative. Like, I'm like, okay, one little glitch happened and I see us homeless on the road. And it's like, that's not going to happen, Marcus. Chill out, calm down. Um, and what happens is, we have those thoughts. And I remember this week when some of the stuff happened thinking, I'm really glad I don't drink anymore because this is the kind of thing I would drink over, and I'd probably end up screwing things up and being a maniac instead of just dealing with it rationally. And while it might be a little boring, right? I'm not flipping out. I'm not, falling over. I'm not yelling at people. I'm just doing my thing. And we have to look at that because there are some people that just crave drama. There's some people that do. You got them in your family. I got them in my family. They just have to have it. If it's not there, they'll create it. And, as alcoholics, I know I was like that. I created drama everywhere I went. Um, and now I realize that I don't need that. And therefore, I don't need those old stories. I can cling to the ones that I have that remind me of where I came from. That's good. But I don't need to get into a big drunkalog or anything like that.
Yes, indeed. It's funny. You were what you were just saying made me think about some of the old timers that I'm friends with. Like one guy's like 39 years sober, and the stories that he says, I'm just like, come on, you weren't like that. Jeez, I mean that's just ridiculous. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, whatever. But you kind of alluded to the my life, to somebody might seem boring now, and sure, and that's why we kind of have a tendency to go back to that drunkalog and those crazy stories. And I mean, since I've been sober, there hasn't been anything really exciting in my life. I don't have any huge stories. I can tell you all about my dog walks and my hiking and my bicycle rides and all that, but has anything big and scary happened? No, not at all. When I think about the stories and the stories that I have, one of my stories was I'm a cyclist and I was doing my first 100-mile bike ride, and when I was drinking very heavily at the time, and the morning of I sobered up, but I was going through detox and I started to ride, and my arms were shaking so bad that the handlebars were shaking, and my friends were like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, I just said, "There's something wrong with my bike." And I went back and I had some other friends that were doing the shorter ride. They were leaving a little bit later, so I went back to my truck and I filled one of the water bottles full of vodka, and I did the 62-mile ride without shaking, without any problems. That's how addicted I was, is that I had to have alcohol in my system. And I look at that story as just, I want to remember that story, not for the drunkalog part of it, but for the insanity that this drug can give people. I mean, that's pure insanity. I had to be drunk to do a 62-mile bike ride. I mean, how dangerous is that? I mean, not just physically, mentally, everything. I mean, I probably, I'm surprised my head didn't explode, let alone crash. I mean, those are the kind of things where remembering those stories, it can be a helpful tool to help with sobriety in that long run. I have other stories, and one other aspect of these stories is we have a tendency to, or we can have a tendency to romance it. I live in the wine country, and I remember back in those days, it's coming up actually every year at the end of April. Well, they won't have it this year because of pandemic, but they had this thing called Wine Passport. And that's where every winery in Dry Creek Valley closes to the public. You buy tickets. We'd have a group of 20 people. One year we rented one of those mini buses that seat like 30 people, and we had like 25 people. And, you go to all the wineries and buy too much wine and drink all day. And it was fun. It was fun. I did it every year. That was my holiday every year, was that weekend, and it was fun. I had a good time, and I could easily romance that and, look at how great that was and all those friends. And, I don't hang out with those friends anymore, because most of them are still drinking, probably not alcoholically. They just had their fun weekends here and there. But, they're still friends. And so I do have a tendency to look back on that. And that's where, looking back on those stories can get a little bit risky, and just, thinking about how great all those great times. And of course, those weekends happened before, most of the time, most of those weekends were before alcohol really became a serious problem in my life. I was still, I would say, an alcoholic, but, it happened before, and then and continued, of course, but then you know it slowly spun downhill for me.
Yeah. It's interesting too because a lot of times we think that the enjoyment or the fun is so tied to alcohol when it's actually not.
Right.
Here in Florida, they have a thing called the Food and Wine Festival at the Epcot, Disney Epcot, and we like to go to that. It's fun to go to. And I remember the first time when we moved here, I wanted to go to that, but I was a little, I was like, hey, I'm not like 20 years sober. Is this going to be okay? Because, they got beers from all over the world, wines and champagnes from all over the world. And when I used to go, when I drank, I enjoyed that. They have all the kind of stuff that you can't get at the local pub or bar or whatever it is. And so I would go and I would enjoy that. And I remember the first time I went sober, I was worried about it because I'm like, hey, wait a minute. What's a food and wine festival if it's just a food festival? How's that going to be fun? But I actually found out it's actually pretty fun because one, I remember the entire night. Two, I actually get to enjoy the food and savor it. And three, I save about $400 each time I go there and don't do that because you're sampling a beer for $20 here, a champagne over here, you're sampling this, and by the time the night's over, you're in pretty deep. And so I find that now it's a lot more enjoyable. I actually remember it. I'm coherent. I'm awake, and I feel a lot better. I'm not out there in the 100-degree sun here in Florida, like sweating like a crazy person, falling over myself. And I find that life is a lot better. I know one of the things that sometimes can get to me is seeing other drunk people, and I think it gets to me, like belligerent drunk people, not just normal. When I see belligerent or crazy people, you'll go there and someone's like yelling at you. You need to do. I remember it was like the beginning of the election, and this lady was just toast, and she's like stereotypical, the voice, everything, and she's like, "You guys need to vote for this person." And we're like, wow, no, we're good. Thanks. Move along. We're going this way. And sometimes it makes me sad because I'm like, hey, that's how I was. That's exactly how I was. I was the drunk. That's what I did. And I couldn't go to those things. I would go to them over and over saying, hey, you know what, this time I'm going to have 4 beers and I'll be fine. Never, ever did I stop at 4. And, not to mention the money that you lose. Like, I remember I'd go and I'd pay for something and I'd forget to get my change. I'd go over here and leave money on a thing or leave your wallet somewhere or whatever it is. And I find that I really like sober life because, I'm in charge of what I do. I can be coherent and I can respond and I can react, and not everything is a big deal anymore. That was a big thing for me, is everything was a big deal. This happened. Oh my God, this is the end of the world. Everything was the end of the world. I mean, you would think I was like one of those, religious people that's like, that's the end of the world. You know what? This guy said this, end of the world. And that's how I was. And now I figure out, it's not really the end of the world. The world's been going on for thousands and thousands of years or more. I don't know. I never went to that class in school, but, it's been going and it's going and it's going to go with or without me. And I find that my new life philosophy could not have happened if I was drunk. Like, those two things can't coexist, right? I can't have the philosophy of, hey, life is happening and I'm part of it as a drunk. Because as a drunk, what happens is I go to my base level. I'm living on ego. Only ego. This is me. I need, I want, I have to have. Me, me, me. And so when I live like that, life becomes hectic and crazy. And I start to really look at it and say, hey, now I can live differently.
Yeah, those food and wine festivals. We, for me, the one that was here was always just kind of a blast from the past. You see all the people you haven't seen, since the last food and wine festival. No, but old friends and things like that. So, but I went to one. I went to one here sober, and it was fine. When the people started to get drunk, that was when it was time to leave. That's the thing I do with going, being invited to a friend's house or going to a party or something. I show up on time, I stay. When people are starting to get drunk, it's usually after dinner, and after dinner, after dessert or whatever, birthday cake or whatever it is. That's usually when it's starting to get time to leave. And don't say goodbye to everybody, just say goodbye to the host and your closest friends maybe, and then just take a nice easy exit, and that's usually what I do. And same with those things. I've been to concerts sober, where especially concerts of bands where it's like, am I gonna like this sober? And I've enjoyed them very much, and it is so great being able to drive home. The popular venue in my area is about an hour and a half drive, and driving home at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning sober. Oh my God, it's so much easier. That makes the whole night. It's just, yeah, I'm a little bit sleepy because I tend to go to bed early on a normal basis, but yeah, at least I can stay awake and be, cognizant. Much, much better. Everything's better sober, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's you really get to enjoy and savor life. And I think one of the things that hits people hard when they get sober, but it doesn't have to, is the fact of time. Right? We have time on our hands. We're sitting around and we're like, hey, what are we gonna do? And I think that's a blessing in disguise. Is the fact that when you get sober, time slows, and you really get to take your time and understand things, which is good because we only have however much time we have, and I want to savor it. I want to enjoy it. I want to, do what I can. And we look at it, and it's like, okay, now I can live. Now I can go to this concert and enjoy it. Back when I used to drink, I'd go to a concert, and you're lucky if you make it through the opening band sober, which is like, wow, I just paid $500 to see this crappy band because I'm too hosed to see the person I actually came for. And you actually get to enjoy it, and it slows down, and it's more memorable. Um, and I think that's a good blessing. And like Mama Lisa says, especially in the pandemic, and I think that might be one of the things that is a lesson that we can learn from what's happened over the last year, is that time can slow down, and that all this stuff in our world that we think is super important, with the exception of the people struggling. I don't want to minimize the people struggling. There's lots of people that struggle financially, health wise, all kinds of stuff, and it's handled terribly. I'll just leave that at that. But I think for a lot of us who, maybe you're just like, okay, what do I do with myself? What am I going to do? Um, Learn to enjoy the moment, even when there's nothing to do. Learn to enjoy to be with yourself. And this was something that was very, very difficult for me when I was drinking. I hated being by myself. I had to read a book. I had to listen to a talk. I had to work. Now, I could go sit by a tree and be totally fine with myself. Even, when I was drinking, if I couldn't fall asleep, I would get angry. Like, oh man, I got to get up in the morning. I need to fall asleep. What the hell's the matter with me? I can't sit here and just do nothing. Right? And now, I'm like, hey, this is cool. I get like alone time. Everyone's asleep. Everything's quiet. I could just lay here and pretty soon I fall asleep anyway. But we look at it and it's like, I can be okay with me. And I think that's one of the things that I've heard, and I know Terry's talked about hearing it as well, in recovery is people are not comfortable in their own skin. And what that means is they're not okay with who they think they are. They haven't accepted the fact that, hey, life, circumstance, whatever it is, brought me to this point, and I'm here now. And what am I going to do now? How am I going to live with me? How am I going to be with me? And you understand this where it's like, well, what if you just accept that you're a product of everything you went through that brought you to now? It's what you are. Like if you took me and you swapped me with you, everything, family, upbringing, every choice, everything you made, I would be you. I would think like you. I would feel like it's how this works, right? You just swap the people and it's the same thing. And that's why circumstance is so important. That's why when people say, oh, everyone has the same opportunity. No, they don't. Everyone does not have the same opportunity. That's absolute hogwash because they didn't have the same upbringing. They didn't have the same thoughts. They didn't have the same things that molded and shaped them to where they are. And I find that with the alcoholic, for me in particular, I hated myself. I hated who I was every day. I didn't like looking in the mirror. I didn't like who I saw looking back at me. Sometimes I walk by the mirror and just cuss myself out and be like, you fucking drunk, or whatever. The mirror never talked back. It was kind of nice of the mirror. But I didn't like who I was. And the fact of the matter is I was defining who I was by this artificial set of rules that I made up in my head. Now I'm like, I can't define me. What the hell's a Marcus? Who knows? Some guy sitting here. What is it? Right? And I'm able to accept that, hey, things I went through, what I was brought through, this is where I'm at. Take responsibility for the bad, good, whatever. Take responsibility for where you're at, but also understand, much like being under the influence of alcohol, you were under the influence of your life. You were under the influence. Like, you look at it and it's like you go to India or China or Indonesia, people think differently. Like, they think completely differently. You go to the jungles in South America, where they live on the river and they get their water from the river, and everything revolves around this. They think differently. Their structure of thinking is different. Is it because they're wrong or bad or undeveloped? No, it's because their current situation caused them to think a certain way. Your situation caused you to think a certain way. And once you accept that, not in a way of like, oh, I'm good, whatever I did bad is good or whatever, but accept it in a way of, this is where I'm at, this is where I was brought through, now what? And now the blessing is you get to choose who you want to be. You get to choose how to define yourself. You get to choose what to think about, how to think, right? And it's very interesting to me when we look at those different things. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, when I was drinking, yeah, I felt very much the same as you. I did not like who I was. I think I was most frustrated with having to live that double life, trying to think everything was normal, but it wasn't. And my main concentration was on finding that next drink and making sure I had it. And whatever I had to do to get it, that's what my main thought process was. And then it was trying to hide from everybody that's what my whole focus in life was. But now I'm pretty much okay with who I am. I got desires of things I want to do and what I want to be and this and that and goals and all that. But hey, today, right now, I'm okay. And sobriety has helped me immensely. It's what's changed my life. And with the sobriety, I've developed this new mindset of the way I look at things in life, and things are a lot better. Sure, I have hard times, of course, that happens, but it's okay. I'm able to get through it, and yeah, life's pretty much better. There's a lot of people on here, and then in our Facebook group too. There's a lot of people that are fairly new to sobriety. It'd be interesting to hear how your lives are going right now. I know things can be pretty difficult right now for you, but maybe there's some good things that are going on in life. You could share that with us right now. But I want to go over some of celebrate some of your birthdays. And Richard just said he's got 69 days. That's awesome. That's great, man. And Dawn has 6 weeks. Robin, 23 days. Jiz has a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. On our Facebook group, we got Ashok, I think he's over 30 years. He posts just about every day. It's a little bit different on what he posts, but what he says, I can relate to much of it, definitely. Gregory's 13 days. I'm not sure which, Barry and Susan, but you're having a dry February. I'm not sure how many days you got sober, but I appreciate your posts on there. And Laurel's 19 days, Abel's 57 days, Jordan's a year and a half, Thomas is 3 weeks, David is 1 week. That's incredible. For me, getting 2 hours was a huge accomplishment, let alone even one day. And finally I was able to connect some days together, and I've been able to do it for a little while now. But hey, getting sober, it's a difficult thing. Yvonne, you got 5 years. That's awesome. So good job, everybody.
And if you guys, I like Terry's idea of sharing a bit of your life in the comment box, and we'll get to those in just a minute. I think it's time for our fancy, super expensive commercial. I mean, we got some serious stuff going on here, right? If you are looking to help support the channel, get and stay sober, We have a program set up for you over at talksober.com. You can also join our Facebook group. There's lots of free resources on talksober.com, so check back often because we're adding new stuff. If you do want to support what we're doing here and get all kinds of tools, not only on getting and stay sober, but also on changing the mindset. Like one of the things that I pride myself on is the fact that when I got sober, I set out to change my mindset. I was like, I need to change this. I need something new. And there was a very systematic process that I went through to get that mindset. And that mindset, even though I'm almost 7 years sober now, that mindset still keeps me going today, right? It keeps me going, it keeps me working, it keeps me at it, and it keeps me from bad stuff. Like that mindset was at play this week when all the things went crazy. And I was like, hey, you know what? I could go to the bar. That's the easy way to do it. But that mindset got me going. So if you want to support what we're doing here on the channel, help us reach other alcoholics and get all kinds of MP3s, PDFs, videos, and guides to walk you through what we did to get sober and what we do today to stay sober, definitely go to talksober.com, click on this big yellow button here. Once you click that, it's going to open up the order form, secure order form, and you could go through, put your info in here for $27 a month, or like less than a cheap domestic beer at your house, not even at the bar, a day. It will give you access to all that stuff, and it helps support what we're doing here. Right now, we are running a negative, and we want to build and grow this and take a bigger story or a bigger step in the sobriety community to help more people. So if you want to be part of that and get all that stuff, just go over to talksober.com. You can join the community. Right after you sign up, you'll get logins and you'll be able to go into our sobriety plan. You can see we have it here. Terry has made us really good videos that walk us through sobriety and everything like that. There's a sobriety contract, a contract if you want to have other people keep you accountable, a little report on, hey, I've accepted I'm an alcoholic, now what? And then, you know, what to do now. And then you go through, there's like a little guide that you could print out that'll take you through all the sobriety stuff. It's like a chart that'll keep track of it. And then you could go through, read each letter. So you go through daily, and you can go through it as many times as you want. You can go through it every month if you want to do that. And I think it'll really help you because it'll go through and you watch the video, download the MP3 and MP4, read the PDF, and then it's got all kinds of stuff on here. I think I have to have my logins here, which I logged out so I could show you this page. But it'll have all the stuff there that you could go through, and you just read it, you follow through, and it's going to walk you through everything. And a lot of this stuff is based on what you're getting here. So if you resonate with what we're saying here, I guarantee you're going to love that course. Now, as a disclaimer, Terry and I are not doctors. We're not trained professionals. If you are detoxing, go to the doctor, right? This is for mindset stuff to help you. But again, we're not, doctors or trained people or anything. We just putting together what worked for us. And if it seems like it'll help you based on what you've been hearing so far, head over to talksober.com. You can click the big yellow button and sign up. And you could get rocking and rolling there with all the tools and resources and everything. We're looking to get more people in there to build more of a community, which we're going to start doing probably mid next month, which will be pretty cool. So talksober.com, you can go over there, get the resources, sign up for the class using the yellow button, check out Facebook group and everything like that. And that is my fancy commercial.
Right on. Peter, you said I'm too embarrassed to tell mine. I'm assuming you mean tell your family, and maybe that was in relation to Marcus talking about the contract where you can show your, you can have your family hold you accountable or stuff like that. None of our program is a requirement. Actually, in that contract, you can just write that. You can just fill out that contract to yourself, keep it hidden, whatever. Don't even print it out.
Send one and email it to us.
Yeah.
Either way.
So, none of this has to be out in the open. I understand that many people are either embarrassed or it's just not something that's in the cards as far as, putting yourself out in the open. And I understand that. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So no worries about that. Floorboard, you said, what's the worst thing you guys have done drunk? And that made me think. And I was thinking, let's see, what about this time? You know what the worst thing I did while drunk is neglected my family. I wish I could come up with a much more exciting story, but that's it. I've neglected my family. and secondly would probably be neglect myself, but just hurting people, hurting friends and family. That's the worst thing, and that's the part that's takes a long time to recover from for sometimes, you know. So that's I've gotten that back now, and it didn't take too long, but um, it took some time, took some work. It takes consistent work to show that love and support throughout these sober years, and I have to continue to work at it. So that would be my answer there.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think my worst regret drinking was that I was drunk. Like I didn't like myself. I didn't like what alcohol turned me into. I didn't like how it controlled my thoughts, and I didn't like that it took me away from what could have been. Right now, I see I've been sober. I know what could have been. Like this is what could have been. It's great. I love it. Every day I wake up, I'm happy. Even like today, I woke up. I was totally frustrated before I turned on this cameras and stuff. I was throwing stuff around the office. I think Terry saw the tail end of that. He's like, "What the hell's the matter with you, dude?" But I'm able to relax and get out of that. Like before, that'd be 6 months. I would be dwelling on stuff for 6 months, and my life would be going crazy for 6 months, and I couldn't get out of it. And now I find out, hey, I can get out of this stuff, and I can understand exactly what's going on, and I can rise above things, and I don't have to live in a chaotic world anymore. I don't have to neglect people or neglect things I need to do or run around like a crazy person. And crazy I was. Like Terry was talking about, alcohol makes us insane. That's what it does. Um, I don't know why it does to some people and others. I think scientifically, in my limited knowledge, I think if anyone drank as much as Terry and I did, or as much as a lot of you guys may have or currently do, you probably have the same thing. Like it warps your thoughts, it warps your mind, and you get dependent. And chemicals change the way we think, and we notice that when we're sober. Like, okay, I have too much coffee. I think this way. I have this. I think this way. Don't get enough sleep. I think this way. Too much sugar. And it all affects what we do. And I think that the key is to find your baseline of where you're okay, and focus on that every day. Like, okay, where's my baseline? Like, I know I could throw a little fit about some stuff. That's cool. But I can't get too far from my baseline. And when I was drinking, there wasn't even a baseline. There was nothing. I was just running out like a maniac. And I was reacting to what happened. Here's something that happened. I'm reacting. It's like, there was a scene in Happy Gilmore. And in Happy Gilmore, he's a hockey player that wants to play golf, but he still kind of likes hockey. And he goes to the batting cages with his hockey gear on, and he flips on the batting cages so it's throwing like 1,000 fastballs at him a second. And he just stands there and he's like taking it. And that's what you feel like as a drunk. You feel like you're standing there taking the fastballs of life and being like, okay, well, I need to deal with this, I need to deal with this, and everything's chaotic and hectic. When in actuality, when you're sober, you realize, hey, there's a door on the batting cage, and I could step outside and I could just watch the balls hit the fence. I don't even need to be in there. And that's what sobriety does, is it gives us the serenity back of I don't need to react to everything. I can slow down and I can respond. That's fine. But I don't need to react. And that way of life is worth anything anyone could have ever given me. And I didn't know that was a byproduct of sobriety. I thought, oh my God, I can't drink anymore. How am I going to live? Guess I can't have alcohol. This sucks. Responding, reacting, fastballs. I could just get out and say, that's not even a point anymore. Like, that's not even a thing anymore. I don't care. I'm like, I don't even care about drinking anymore. I don't miss it. I don't care. And we look at it and it's like, wow, what a blessing in disguise if we push through long enough. And that's what the Talk Sober program is about, is showing you how those mindsets came about. Because I think there's two different types of sober people, and I've seen it over and over. You got the guy in the back who's miserable that he can't drink, And he's like, I hate this. I can't drink. I wish I could drink. And it was so good when I drank, but now I can't. And then you have the people that are like, dude, I don't want to drink because life's great now. I don't need that anymore. And that's what sobriety for me is about, is creating a life I don't need to run from.
Yeah, absolutely. Don kind of summed it up here a little bit. For me, the inner peace that I have now is priceless. No more inner turmoil and having to hide from my drinking from my family is the best. I feel free. I feel the same way, Don. I'm free, and that's what that for me, that happened pretty early in sobriety, almost right away when I finally was able to get sober. Some people it doesn't. So some of you, you might be early in sobriety. You may feel like you're that person in the back of the room hating the fact that you can't drink and stuff like that. That's okay if you keep on fighting through it and work on that mind stuff. Like in our program, work on that mind stuff. You can develop the attitude. It's exercise. It is a little bit of work. It's not a ton of work. It's just a little bit. We have to change our perspective and our outlook on things, and that's what I've learned to do, and that's help me. I mean, you guys might kind of agree that I'm a pretty calm guy, huh? Maybe not.
I think you're pretty
I don't
calm.
know. Just yeah, I'm free, and that's one of the most calming things, and that's what helps me immensely going through life. So yeah, CGM sounds said something. Oh, by the way, congratulations on 9 months sober. That's good. It's great. And you said, I don't know anyone that doesn't drink, and that is strange. On second thought, I know people that don't, but it's for religious reasons, and I'm not that. Um, I don't know many people that are not strange. I just had to throw that in there, but no, I know what you're saying. But we're all different, and I think we're all weird in our own way. I know I'm a weirdo. So,
Yeah, and I think that's a big point when it comes to the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we go through when we're drinking, is the fact that we don't need to carry a lot of that around. Doesn't really matter, right? We look at it and it's like, okay, that is what was, but it's not anymore. I don't need to cling to that. I'm not that guy who was in the RV trying to, figure out ways to not live. I'm not that guy who was drunk over and over and over again anymore. That was a different person, and now I get to be something else. And when I look at the stories I tell myself, a lot of us, we tell stories about ourselves, and those are our defining things. I did this. This happened to me. I am this. And when we get into that, it's a really pointless place to be, because why do we need to define it? Why do we need to say this is who this person is? And what I find is that all throughout life, we're going through trying to put everything in different categories and boxes rather than just experiencing it. Or what if we just experience life? What if I experienced a person without saying he's boring, he's weird, he's this, he's that? What if I just said, well, what if I just listened? What if I just relaxed and was? Right? What if I just focused on now? Because just like you, everyone else has these issues. Just like you, everyone else is dealing with stuff too. And when you find out that the stories don't really matter all that much, then you could get sober without having to have these stories, without having to glamorize drinking or glamorizing what you did. And you could go through and say, hey, you know what? That was a part of my life. That door, that chapter is closed, and now I'm going this way.
yeah. Derek has said something's off when everyone around you forgives you, but you can't forgive yourself, i.e., me. And that's kind of along with the same lines as what Marcus is just talking about. And I don't know that I focus so much on forgiving myself. More of what I've done is tried to build a life that I didn't have to forgive myself from. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I have let go of those past things, most of them. I still have guilt, of course, but it's not so bad now because I have built a better life, and I think I'm a pretty good person, and that's what helps me moving forward. Yeah, you're right. As far as other people, yeah, I went through and made lots of reparations with people and asked for forgiveness and all that stuff. And pretty much most of them were like, "Are you sober now?" Yeah, that'd be my answer. And they're like, "Good, stay that way." And that was, and then most people have forgiven me, and it's it was quite surprising to me actually. But yeah, moving forward, trying to just be a good person.
And I think also, try replacing the word forgive with accept. Because a lot of us, we have this connotation of forgiveness and we picture a church and crosses and weird stuff. And what if instead we just accepted? What if you accepted that because you were an alcoholic, you did things, said things, acted a certain way? And you accept that, hey, you know what? I go to like AA groups and recovery groups, and everyone did all the same kind of stuff. So either we're all nuts or alcohol does something to the way we act. Well, we all have alcohol in common and we all act pretty similar. I'm going to say it's alcohol. Now, does that say it's alcohol's fault? We are not in charge of. No, absolutely not. I chose to drink the alcohol, therefore I am responsible for what I did. But again, under the influence. Except this is where I am, this is what I did. Some people may not like me, some people may like me, some people might not. Maybe I have to pay back society for things I did. Maybe I have to look at this stuff. And now I look at it and I'm like, okay, can I accept that I'm an alcoholic and this is what alcoholics do and this is what happened? Okay? We don't really, I mean, forgiveness, we get to that when you get to it, but let's start with acceptance. Because the
Yep.
minute you accept, hey, I'm an alcoholic, this is what I did, now you're putting the alcohol part because that's what you need to focus on. Because without that, if you don't get rid of the alcohol, nothing we say matters. Nothing. Like if you keep drinking and you're a drunk and an alcoholic, then nothing's gonna matter. That's why you got to focus on that first. And don't get hung up on words like forgiveness and all this other stuff. Let that come when it comes,
Yeah.
right? Work on being better now. Okay, I was an ass when I drank. I'll not be an ass now. I stole when I drank. I'll give now that I'm sober, or whatever it is. You look at it and you start to change things because a lot of us are waiting for a feeling. And we're like, when I feel forgiven, then I can quit drinking. That ain't ever gonna come. The way you feel better is by doing better. Bring your ass, and your brain will follow. Start doing stuff. You want self-esteem? Do esteemable acts. You want people to like you? Start liking people. You want anything in life, you have to look at, okay, what am I going to do to get this? And usually it's the opposite of what you've been doing that got you the result you have now. You want to be sober? Don't drink, right? You have to look at this and really, really focus on it.
Right. CGM Sounds also says I stopped cold turkey, and the withdrawal was probably the worst thing I experienced in terms of the feeling itself. That feeling alone makes me never want to drink again. And yeah, I hear you. Me too. That was one of the main reasons that kept me from stopping drinking is I had tried, and the withdrawals were so painful that I didn't want to try again. So it can work in the other direction as well. The reason I read this comment though is that if that's something that anybody is thinking of doing is just going cold turkey and experience a withdrawal, and maybe that'll keep me from drinking. Don't go to a doctor. The withdrawals literally almost killed me. So that's it happens, and it does. Withdrawals do kill people. So make sure you go to a doctor. So I just wanted to touch on that one real quick. But I hear you. I don't want to go through those withdrawals either ever again. Definitely not. They were some painful stuff. Um, Thank you, Mama Lisa. You say I've been here already, and I'm so blessed to have this community, especially with the meetings not open in Wisconsin. Yeah, yeah, it's great talking to you, to all of you here, and I appreciate everybody's perspective. And
Let's see. I noticed that when I want to drink again, I'm angry, so it's self sabotage. Watch out for that. Yeah, absolutely. Anger is a quick way back to the bar. A lot of people have that issue. So, look at what you're angry about. And usually it's because I'm not getting what I want. It all goes back to ego. I'm not getting what I want. Well, this guy pissed me off. Okay, so that guy didn't act how you wanted. That's why you're angry, because you didn't get what you want. You wanted him to act a certain way. He didn't act a certain way. You wanted your boss to give you a raise. They didn't give you a raise. You thought you were entitled to this. You weren't entitled to it. But if you start from a baseline of, I'm not entitled to anything, I didn't even choose where I was born. Like, for some reason, I was born here in affluent America, and, we got everything we ever need and food from all over the world that we could go get even during all this chaos at the grocery store. Heck, they just get anything you want. Anything. Other people were born in places where, they have to dig in the ground for what they need. They have to, beg for money or whatever it is. And so if I can't choose where I'm born, then who the hell am I to choose what I'm entitled to or what I should get? Like, I can't, right? When we look at that, and it's like, okay, if you start from a different baseline, a baseline of my personal philosophy is I deserve what the least person has. Anything else was just whatever. The luck of the draw is what we got, and you try to make it better for people if you can, and that's what you do. But I think a lot of us in these cultures like America and stuff like that, we have this entitled viewpoint of I should get, I need, whatever, and we don't look at what we're grateful for. Right? I'm grateful. Like the way that most of us live, even people that are struggling, even people that are hurting, the way that we live is like how kings lived in the old day. Like, I have a machine that'll make me coffee whenever I want it to. I have entertainment from all over the world that I'm so bored because I can't choose what to watch because there's so many things to watch. I have, I could order food from whatever restaurant I want and it'll be here in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on where you live, right? And we look at it and it's like, wow, we've become ungrateful for the things that we have. We've been like, hey, I could come in here at my backyard office and I could talk to a bunch of people about alcohol. That's pretty cool, right? And when we realize that, hey, you know what? Most of what I'm going through is just me throwing a tantrum, okay? And that's not to negate people that are struggling. There's people that are going to be hungry tonight. And, we try to do our best to help them. Hopefully our government will get their act together and do more to help them instead of passing more tax breaks for the rich. But at any rate, y'all see my t-shirt, so you can forgive me on that one. But you have to look at it and say, hey, how are we going to do this? Mona Lisa is saying something about when can we have a conference. Conferences are extremely expensive to put on, so we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Right now, it doesn't look like it's in the cards, but maybe, in a year or so. Again, why y'all need to sign up at talksober.com so we can start doing more stuff. And then, maybe we'll have a upgrade where you can attend the conference or something like that. It would probably be Florida, I would presume, because I know the prices of renting a hotel in San Francisco versus Florida is quite different. And I'm definitely not going to do the cheapest place to get a hotel, which is Vegas, because they literally push booze in your face. And that would not be a good place for an alcohol convention. I'm just going out on a limb there, right? But yeah.
I bet there's a lot of sober meetings in Las Vegas. A lot of people trying to recover.
Yeah.
Benjamin, just one more quick comment. We are running out of time, so if you guys have any last minute comments or questions, let us know. But Benjamin, you said how do you stop relapsing? I keep getting sober and then relapsing. And JM just put a good answer right there. For me to keep sober, a hobby, walking, trying eating healthy, and getting good sleep. Those things really help. But Benjamin, it's what I did was I did everything that people, doctors, other sober alcoholics, I did everything that those guys suggested that I do. Everything, as much as I possibly could. I had the luxury, or was it a luxury, of losing my job and not having any friends left. So, so I was able to really focus on sobriety. But the attitude I took was sobriety has to be the most important thing in my life. And I continue with that attitude as far as my sobriety is concerned. And that's what helps me. It's really, you could call it almost a psychic change in your mental attitude, as far as you have to be able to put sobriety as a top priority over everything else. I wish I had an easy answer for you on how to stop relapsing. If I did, yeah, I'd be a rich man, probably, because that's many people's issue is the constant relapse, and it's work. And
Yeah.
if you did something before, you may have to think about the fact that you probably have to step up what you were doing. And if you relapse again, you probably have to step it up again. And just keep trying to listen to what doctors and sober alcoholics are telling you to do, because the doctors know what they're talking about. The sober alcoholics have been successful, so they've done something that works.
And I would chime in too and say, once you get the detox and the doctor and the hospital stuff out of the way, because if you're relapsing, if you're drinking, go to the doctor. Alcohol messes up your system. You need to see a professional. Once you get all that out of the way, it's pretty much mindset and it's understanding and plans of what you're going to do. And what I would say, what I wish someone would have told me or had available when I was struggling with this, is go to talksober.com, sign up for the thing, go through the 30 days, and then when you're done, go through them again and go through them again. And I think what you'll have is you'll have a change of your mind and you'll start to understand different things that you didn't understand before, because this is gonna be like your sobriety plan. Like, okay, I read this, I do the steps, and now I'm gonna get where I need to go. Is it a guarantee you won't relapse? No, there is no guarantee that you won't relapse. Even, you can go to the fanciest, greatest rehab alive, and they still don't guarantee you're not gonna relapse. But I have found that for the last 7 years, dealing with some of the hardest things I've dealt with in my life, this is what helped me. These things are what helped me. Understanding and changing my life philosophy and my brain and the way I think about things was key. And um, I think that it's helpful in that the fact that I'm kind of an over dramatic person and my mind's a little over dramatic and out there, so it gets the point across, right? So you'll hear some crazy story or some thing that happened with me and you'll be like, yeah, Marcus is kind of nuts, but I get how this will work in my life. And I think it'll really help you with that. And Terry's gone through and made the videos and everything. I think that would be a good place to start, because you got to start retraining your brain, and that's what that's about. Talksober.com, yellow button, sign up. It's about retraining your brain. I've written this over the last 4.5 years, and I've really taken my time to understand. Okay, where does each one go, right? And it might look like, oh well, that's a 10-page letter, big deal. It was actually, I went through and really thought it out and said, what am I going to do with this, and how am I going to help, and how did it help me? Hey there, Terry.
Sorry, I'm just reading comments, and
Okay.
yeah. Jam also says those urges are hard to overcome sometimes. They don't last forever. And that's true. They don't last forever. And yeah, you can get through it, man.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I think we are about out of time. Hop over to talksober.com, click that big yellow button, get signed up. We look forward to seeing you in the group. If you need anything, we got our Facebook group, we got our paid group, everything to try to help you out. If you're detoxing and trying to get sober, go to the doctor. Don't hesitate. I mean, could save your life. Saved Terry's, saved mine. Glad I went. So even if you think you're a lightweight or whatever, I'm not that bad, go anyway. Um, and start making a plan to stay sober and really, really focus. All right, guys.
See you all today. Thanks for joining us.
All right, have a good one, guys.